that people have a right to take back their countries, and out of this, over the long term, one has to believe that you will have a creative disruption which leads on to better things. And I believe this has to be right, because in the end, history has shown us that democratic forms of government have more good in them than non-democratic forms of government. But it's painful. Right. And if you ask me about it as an analyst, I would say that in 2011, the first thing, and I wrote about this in eTurbo, I was quite determined at the beginning of the year. I wrote an article that said, batten down the hatches. And I said, everybody says, the economy's growing and the forecasts are for continued growth, and I have some reservations. And my reservations at that time, and I remember distinctly writing, I said, look, the growth is on the losses of the previous year and the year before that. And if you look at the real situation, from 2007 to pretty much to the end of 2010, we stood still. So we lost all that out of all our projections and all of the economy. So any growth projections have to be taken against that. Secondly, I said the big economic recovery is fragile. Different paces of recovery in different parts of the world. And then I said the following, that it is highly possible that in the second half of this year we will have social disruption in Europe as a consequence of the budget austerity coupled with rising oil prices and rising food prices. I said that at the time, and
Sir,
I continue.
The pleasure of mine to see you.
I said that at the time, and I continue to believe that now, since writing that at the beginning of the year, we've had North Africa and the Middle East, and we haven't seen the end of this continued.
So you think Europe is going to come
uncertainty.
into the mix, and
then you add Asia with the tsunami. In my article, I actually said, and this is without any earthquakes, weather impacts, ash clouds or tsunamis, all of which can only be negative in the picture. And none of those had happened. And then we got North Africa, we got the Middle East, and now we've had the tsunami. And I'm still saying the jury is out on what the young people will do in Europe when they feel the budget bite. I mean, in the UK,
it started in the UK, is it?
In the UK, in France, perhaps not Germany, but Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Italy. Now, I don't want to be a prophet of gloom and doom. I want to be a good analyst. And if I'm a good analyst, I say we should be very cautious. First, because if these things aren't controlled in the right way, or maybe you can't even control them, the big economy runs the risk of slipping back into recession. And if the big economy has that risk, and you add to that the potential challenges on our specific sector, which is kind of in the vector of tsunamis and peace disruptions across different countries and demonstrations and violence and that sort of thing, we've got some potential problems. Now, I hope I'm wrong, but that is my analysis.
Well, if you look at the figures now, in Spain it's 20% unemployment, and you look at Greece, there's definitely a conflict in the economy there. And in the UK last year there were thousands and thousands of students protesting.
And I think that's a reason why, the positive reaction to that is, all right, now we've spotted this, what are we going to do about it? And what are we going to do about it? Already they did things. They made stimulus packages. They did a lot of things where the stimulus was actually related. They never said it was tourism, but when you have fast trains, that's all about tourism. When you have superhighways, that's not for commuting, it's about tourism. When you build airports and ports, it's all about tourism. So we have that kind of thing which we have as an experience where governments can increase activity. We have green jobs where they could put a lot of attention now into looking at specific green jobs that could be induce during this period. If we're going into a period of green growth, identify green jobs in a growth sector like tourism, and put some money up for making those happen. And the third thing you can do is a lot of domestic and regional activity, because people tend to still want to do something, but they want to do it closer at home. So it's time for festivals and all of those kind of activities to stimulate tourism activity, and with it, economic activity and jobs.